Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this morning. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Let me look over in the chat here and see what's going on. Let me know if you can hear me. Yes, okay, great. So this is going to be our third webinar that I've done. Two of them have been introduction to data. This one's going to be an introduction to data, and we also do a stock screener webinar. I'm probably going to be adding something a little bit more general, like a kind of office hours type webinar for people who have general questions. But this is really going to be just an introduction to what Fintel can provide you. It's going to be pretty fast. We're going to cover a lot of ground. And it's just really trying to expose you to some of the things that you might not know it does, because it's a pretty sophisticated system. My name's Wilton, and I'm the founder of Fintel, and I've been working on this project for about 5 years. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll get to them if I can, and then if not, then we can take up any other further questions in the on the group, in the message board on Fintel in the welcome group. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. Let's see here. See what I can do here. Sharing my screen. Okay, you guys should be able to see my screen now. This is my dashboard. If you become a registered member of Fintel, then you're going to get a dashboard, and your dashboard is going to come with a certain number of tickers, and you can add tickers here pretty easily by just putting in the ticker here and following a company. Let me just put in GE here and see what happens. So now you can see that we've got GE. I don't have the chat pulled up in front of me right now. So if you guys have questions, I'll come to them in a second. I'm just going to get this little first area, and then I'll check the chat. But basically, this is your dashboard, and it allows you to kind of follow a bunch of companies and follow interesting stuff about your companies in a fairly easy manner. So we've got news here, we've got SEC filings here, we've got insider transactions down here, and then at the very bottom we have ownership transactions. Each of these is just kind of like a little bite-sized view. If you want to click to see more, you're going to click on that, and it'll take you over to the actual insiders page. So the overview is basically a snapshot of all of the things that you have on the left. We've started a new feature called alerts, and when you sign up and you follow like a company, you're going to be automatically subscribed to be getting what we call alerts for these companies. And a lot of these alerts are things that we've curated, things like 8Ks or important announcements, important SEC filings, insider trades that are important. We also cover things like a new investor has invested in the company or has taken a position. If there's a proxy statement or a registration statement that might suggest that there's going to be a dilution, then we're going to alert on that. All of these things you can, and if you've signed up for email alerts, you're getting emails, you're going to find that you've also got all those same alerts here. So the email alerts are fun. A lot of people like them, but a lot of people feel overwhelmed. So we're trying to build an alert viewer here that will allow you to see kind of the same kind of experience, but in a more manageable environment here. And so this is basically real time. If there's an alert that happens right now, it'll actually show up here, so I don't have to hit reload. I can see my news here. SEC filings. The SEC filings are important because anytime a company has to file, has a material event, they have to tell the SEC about it. So I think I mentioned this in another webinar. There was a study that was done, and they looked at portfolio managers, and they told half the portfolio managers to not read the news and the other half to read the news. And it turns out that the portfolio managers that didn't read the news actually performed better than the ones that didn't. So news, in my opinion, is noise. But a lot of times, but stock filings or SEC filings is not. And so I actually find that it's really important to file the SEC filings. If a company thinks that something is important, then they're going to file an 8K. If they don't file an 8K, then they run the risk of being sued for not reporting something that's material. So if somebody is filing an 8K, then it's important. And these 8Ks also have press releases in here. So you can see here what's interesting to them and what's important to them. I see that there's a couple questions over here. Let's look in the chat. For insider trades, is there a way to find out what insiders are shorting a company? There's not. I don't believe that insiders generally short companies because they're going to be paid, or their compensation usually comes from the shares going up. So I don't believe that insiders shorting their own companies is actually a thing. The next question is, how quick is news posted from the SEC to your site? We ping the SEC every 60 seconds. And so it's pretty fast. How do you remove a company from the dashboard? Great question. Great question. Let me show you here. If you go over here to your, so if you go over here to your stock list, which is kind of where we've been putting everybody, your follow list is your default follow list. You can't delete this. But if you want to delete a company in here, you can just go over here and you can click on remove from list and it's going to go away. If you have a whole bunch of companies, you can actually go in here and you can actually delete the entire stock list and it will remove all of the companies in that stock list as well. So that's how you do that. It's a good question. Everybody has this question, and I'm glad you asked. The other way you can do this is you can go to your alerts and you can go to your company alerts and you can just click on unfollow. Let me see if I can unfollow this company here. And it's gone. Now, I know that there was a couple reports of this not working very well, and I'm happy to look into it after this call. The question would be, is the alert screen searchable, filterable? No, I don't think I understand the question. But it's a good question. I mean, I'll look into that as potentially a feature request in the future. And then I would like to add to the last question, is there a way to see how many shares are being held short on a given stock? So what you're looking for there is short interest. We actually don't, we actually have short interest for OTC companies. We don't have short interest for Nasdaq or New York Stock Exchange companies yet, but we're licensing that data. And so you will be able to see it. We're going to be running some interesting analysis on the short interest from companies, and we're going to be doing some things like trying to build some predictive models around short squeezes and being able to rank companies that have the highest level of short interest per float. I think that's an interesting metric that a lot of people don't look at. And then somebody says insiders could hedge a position by buying puts or shorting a highly correlated stock, but I don't think there's any filing for that. Is it possible to follow more than one list of companies, or do we have to consolidate all the different portfolios on the unique list? So you can actually create as many stock lists as you want. So you can actually create your own large caps here. This is large caps. A lot of questions today. This is great. I love it. And let's see if I can just keep up with the questions here. So it is possible to follow more than one list of companies. How do you track 13D filings? So if you put in a company in here, we're going to track 13D filings for you automatically. We consider that to be an important and material issue. And so if you come over here to your disclosures, to your SEC filings, you know, I don't actually think we put the 13D filings on this alerts on the dashboard, but it is important. Actually, the 13D filings will show up here. But what's happening here is you're seeing the 13F filings are kind of crowding them out. And maybe it's worth putting 13D filings and 13G filings in its own box here. But if you want to go to like Google, for example, I'm going to click on Google here. And you go to the ownership tab here on Google. I'm not sitting close enough to my Wi-Fi to be able to get fast response here on this. Let me just go up here. This is maybe Google's not the best. We'll look at Tesla, for example. You can see the 13D and 13G filings are at the top of the SO page here for Tesla. And that will show you all of the 13D and 13G filings. Can you filter alerts for specific tickers is the next question. So I'm not quite sure I understand what that means. Right now, I'll tell you just how it works right now, and then you can tell me if I answered your question. Right now, if you turn on an alert for a company, you're going to get what we call stock essentials. And this is just essentially a list of important alerts that I have curated that I believe to be important to you. And there's no way to change that right now. That list includes 8Ks, you're going to get 10Ks, 10Qs, you're going to get 13D filings, you're going to get proxy filings. You're going to get registration statements that would indicate potential dilution, things like that. Now, in the future, and this is something that we're actively working on right now, we're working on a very granular way to be able to define your own alerts. And so, for example, you would be able to say, create an alert for me that's going to tell me every company that files an S1 statement completely in the entire universe. And you can see that I'm testing this out. If you go look at my alerts right now, you can see I'm getting an alert for every company that's filed an S1 statement here. This alert isn't available to the public yet. I'm just testing it out, but we're going to be able to allow you to say, send me an alert for every company in my stock list that files an S1 statement, or send me an alert for if just this specific company files an S1 statement. You're going to be able to specify the types of filing that you want. You're going to be able to specify insider trade granularity. So send an alert just an insider trade that has a purchase or a sale, that has a minimum number of shares or a minimum dollar value. We're really trying to build a really complex and sophisticated filtering system to help people generate these alerts. And again, we want to make them fast, we want to make them quick, and we want to make them easy to manage. I don't know if I answered your question. Do you cover Canadian companies? We do have coverage of Canadian companies. We actually have ownership data for just about every company in the world and every country in the world. If you go to your tools here and you go to the country browser, you're going to see the ownership data. Now, Fintel started off really looking at ownership data. We looked at the 13F filings, and that's kind of how we kind of got to where we are. So ownership data is something that I believe we do really well. So for example, you can go into Canada here and you can say, these are all the companies that we have ownership data on. So here's Canadian National Railway. You can see we have, I think they're a dual filer, or they're dual listed. So we're getting 13Fs and we're getting NP filings on them. But there might be a Canadian company up here that's not dual listed. Let's just, well, most of these are probably all dual listed. But the point is that we do have coverage of Canadian companies. What we don't have right now yet is we don't have insider data for Canadian companies. This is available on SETI, that we're going to be licensing this data and putting it on here. And we're going to be getting filings from CDAR, which is the Canadian kind of version of the SEC. So we're in the process of doing that. We'll probably get that done in the next 6 months. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of what I think you're asking me here. So if there's any way to find out who's shorting and how many shares. Okay, so that's a good question. So not every company is required to disclose their short positions, but some are. And so let me just kind of show you kind of the SS page here, which stands for stock short data, has everything that we know about short positions for a company. Now, like I said, we don't have Nasdaq or NYSE listed companies short interest yet. We're licensing that. So this is going to be blank for somebody like Tesla. We have the short volume here, which is updated on a daily basis. And then if you go further down to the bottom, you have all of the funds that have disclosed short positions in Tesla. Now, again, not every company has to disclose their short positions. You can see that the current shares short here are negative 762 shares, or you've got negative 1 million shares. This is the best we can do here, but it's something that's interesting. And you can see that, you know, these green lines here are new short positions. And so you can kind of get a sense of is this going up or down, and kind of what the point, you know, what is their strategy? Jen, I hope that answered your question. Can we see real-time institutions and hedge fund transactions like insiders? So it's a great question. Everybody asks this question. There is no real-time. I mean, let me just kind of state what real-time is. I'm assuming that real-time data would be data that is within moments of a trade happening. And the answer to your question is no, we don't have that data, and I don't think anybody has that data. Hedge funds are not required to disclose their trades in real time in general. Institutions that take more than a 5% position in a company, in any listed company, any person or institution or entity that takes more than a 5% percent position in a company is required to file a 13D or a 13G within 10 days of making that trade. If somebody takes more than a 10% position, then they are considered an insider, and they are required to file disclose any transaction within 2 days. These are business days. And so we get those like within seconds of them being disclosed. The rest of this data is required to be disclosed on a quarterly basis, and at the end of the quarter, or at the end of the period. So this file date was for 12/20/29, but if you actually click through here, you're going to find out that the actual effective date, which was the reporting period, was for the end of October here. So there is no real-time institutional hedge fund transactions, unfortunately. If there was, we would have it. And I don't think anybody has it. So what is the best way to use short interest? So short interest and short data basically is telling you, it's basically a level of sentiment, right? And really all of this information is kind of like, what is the sentiment? So we're looking at ownership data. What is the institutional ownership of a company? We're looking at the insider data to understand the insider sentiment. And then short interest is really kind of another form of sentiment. Now, the short interest, which I'm going to try to find an OTC listed stock, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to find one off the top of my head. But let's just see here if hang on a second. Fintel.io, SSUS. I don't know if Timber is Nasdaq or not, but okay, it's not there. So the short interest is basically a measure of how many shares are being held short, and this data is released every 2 weeks. And what a lot of people like to look at is if the short interest is increasing significantly and it's this large percentage of float, then they're hoping that something is going to happen. It's called a short squeeze, which is where the share price goes up and the brokers require the people holding short shares to cover their shares by buying more, putting more cash in, and then it basically drives the price up. And so that's something that is really interesting to a lot of people. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to be licensing that data, and we're going to actually be calculating the short interest ratio, and we're going to be providing a ranking of companies with the highest short interest ratio. So basically a leaderboard of the most likely companies at any given time to be subject to a short squeeze, which is probably going to be the most interesting thing that you're going to want out of the short interest. Short volume, a lot of people trade short volume because it's released on a daily basis, and it's going to kind of show you, this is short sale volume. So this basically tells you the number of short sales, the number of trades, the number of shares that are tagged as short sales on any given day, and the markets track this, and we get this from FINRA. This is a slice of the total short sale market. There's other data that we can license that can add to that, but most people are getting this all from the same place. And so we take that and we divide that by the total volume and show you kind of at any given point in time what is the kind of the significance, or what is the sentiment of the market at any given time. So I don't know if I answered your question there. Hopefully I have. Do you follow sponsored or non-sponsored ADRs? We follow every ticker that we can. So if you go back to the ownership data, I think that if you look at like Tata Motors is an ADR. If you go look at Tata Motors here, we have that. It might actually be listed, but we do cover those companies. Can I send the alerts to text rather than email? This is another one of the most requested questions. We are working on a way to add text message alerts to the system. Ideally, what you'll be able to do is you're going to be able to say, here's my alerts. I'm going to set up a channel. One channel is going to be email. You can set up a text message channel. We're looking at being able to send alerts to Slack channels. I don't know if anybody's interested in this. I guess theoretically we could send it to any kind of webhook. So I guess that would support a Discord server, I suppose. If this is interesting to you, Slack and Discord and things like that, then I would encourage you to reach out to me on the welcome channel or a welcome message board and kind of show your support for that idea, because these are things that are important to us. We want to know what you guys like. So Next question. Can you batch delete companies from a profile? The only way you can batch delete a company from your profile is to go through and delete the stock list. Now, that's not to say that we can't fix that. A lot of people ask about this. A lot of people come in and they sign up for 100 stocks and then they have to delete them one by one. So a lot of people have asked about this. I will look into seeing if we can quickly provide a way to batch delete companies from the profile. Can I speak to the general timeline from when 13F filings are submitted after the quarterly deadline to when they're posted on Fintel? Okay, so this goes back to how quickly is the data, how fresh is the data. So in general, there's two kinds of filings that are important to us, at least to the ownership data. There's 13F filings, and then there's the import filings. Import filings are generally new. They've been around for about 9 months. 13F filings, let me get an example up here. 13F filings are required by the SEC 45 days after the end of the quarter. So the quarter ends March 31st and so on. And that means, and so the quarter ends, like, for example, December 31st is the end of Q4. 45 days after December 31st is January 15th. So the filings, the 13F filings for the end of Q4 are going to be January 15th. But when you look at the actual filing, and I'm going to pull one of these up here for you. Here's a 13F filing here. And I'm going to look at the history. You're going to be able to see the effective dates here and the file dates here. So for March 31st, they filed on 5/18. I would say they filed a little bit late here. For June 30th, they filed on 8/10, which was on time. And for the September 30th, they filed on 12/10, which was on time. Is there any delay once they are submitted, or are they posted the same or the next day on Fintel? They are posted immediately on Fintel. We ping the SEC every 60 seconds, and we process them as soon as we can. Obviously, February 15th is a very big filing day. It might get a little backed up, 2 or 3 minutes backed up, but they go out as soon as we can process them. It's all automated. We have all the systems that do this. And there's no human that looks at them. We have some checks on them to make sure that the data is reasonably correct, but most of the data errors that we get are actually filing errors, and they're within the filings themselves. We generally try to post the data as it's filed. And so let me move on to the next question here. Is there a Bitcoin, et cetera, that I can through my broker Ameritrade? I don't know the answer to that question. Oh, is there a Bitcoin ETF that you can buy through your broker? I'm sure there is, but I don't know anything about that. I guess if you probably Google Bitcoin ETFs, you could probably get that, but I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. Here's Bill talking about the short holdings. Okay, good job. Thanks, Bill. Can you go through the funds disclosing short positions on the bottom of short interest windows? I just did that, but I'll do it again real quick. So one more time here. This is the file date. This is going to be as of a certain date, probably a couple weeks ago. The as of date is the 10/31 for this company, for this filer. These mutual funds are all basically kind of long short funds. You're going to find out. So they're going to be shorting stuff, and they're going to be taking some stuff long. The previous shares that this company had were 25,000 shares short. Now they've got 57,000 shares short. So they've increased their short position by 121%, which means they're taking a more negative outlook on this company. The previous value here was $27,000, and now it's $24,000. So they've lost 12% on that value. And these columns are sortable here, so it's good. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so I'm starting to catch up here. How do you find about the best performing funds and concentration of these funds and portfolios into specific stocks? So it's a good question. We don't actually have fund performance in here yet. The data is available, and we're going to be adding fund performance, I would say, within the next quarter. So we will have fund performance. We are going to have, and we'll be able to show you a leaderboard of that shows you the best performing funds in a given quarter and over a period of time as well. How to find the concentration of these funds portfolios into specific stocks. Well, I mean, you can see the concentration of funds and specific stocks just by looking at the fund itself. Let me see if I'm answering your question correctly. So I'm just going to click on this fund right here, on this investor, and I can sort this company by shares or by dollar value, which is probably a better approach to this. And I can show you that the highest dollar value of this GIVYX mutual fund is in Stoller Capital Corp right here. So here's one way you can actually see the concentration of their money on a specific company. You can also see the portfolio allocation here for the import filings and for the mutual funds. We can actually show you the total percentage of their portfolio in a specific company. So that's one of the things that's kind of interesting. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Short volume is shares sold short or new shorts net of covering for transaction. Short volume, I don't know that you can tell the answer to that from the data that we have. It is just, the actual definition is the volume of shares traded in a day that were marked as short sale trades. So I don't think that you can tell the difference of that from the information that we have. Is the average price column in ownership the price that shares were bought during that quarter or the share price when they filed with the 13F? Okay, great question. So the average share price, I'm going to tell you, like, this is another really good question a lot of people ask about. So the average share price, if they've only filed one, so let me just kind of step back. The only thing that is reported in a 13F filing is the value at the end of the quarter and the shares at the end of the quarter. Now this is an NP filing, so it's not going to be as let me just go here to find a 13F. Okay. Here's a company that is only 13F filing. So the only thing that is reported in a 13F filing for each position is the value at the end of the quarter and the total shares at the end of the quarter. So in that scenario, the average share price is just the total value that they disclosed divided by the total shares that they disclosed at the end of the quarter. So that would have been as of 3/31. Now, if somebody had a previous position here, and this is a kind of a bad example because they had a previous position and then they sold it and they took it again. Let's take a look at this company here, and I'm going to kind of blow this up a little bit here so you guys can see this. So in the scenario right here, the average share price, we want to know the average share price over the quarter, not just at the end of the quarter. Again, remember, these filings are showing positions at the end of the reporting period, but we don't want to know the share price at the end of the reporting period because the share price could have gone, it could have gone from one extreme to the other extreme over the quarter. So what we do in this scenario, and this is how the math should work here, is we look at the share price, the average share price at the beginning of the quarter or the prior reporting period, which would have been something like the value divided by the shares, okay? And then we look at the value divided by the shares at the end of the quarter, at the end of the period, and then we average those. So the question is the average share price the price that the shares were bought during that quarter or the share price when they filed the 13F? It's neither. It's the average share price of the shares over that quarter, which is also the average share price that they would have purchased for that. So the answer to your question is over the entire quarter. Can I speak to the average price column? Can I speak to what the average price column means when looking at calls or puts? It's the same. It's the average price of the value of the calls and puts. We don't have the strike price. The strike price is not disclosed in these filings. Next question. I think Rite Aid is highly manipulated due to a reverse split, only 55 million shares. It had profitability issues, but isn't turnaround. I have to wonder if a larger company is looking to buy it out but suppress the price. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't. I can tell you that a lot of people ask about this me see if I can go to, a lot of people ask about situations here where we have institutional shares that are greater than 100%. This happens occasionally. A lot of times it comes up from reverse stock splits. A lot of times it comes up from situations where there's double reporting. And we do our best to fix these situations, but we don't actually have a lot of control over that. I'm going to keep going through the chat here, and I'm going to look at a bunch of Q&As. For the results of the country browser, any possibility to have the results listed by alphabetical order for company names or by some particular order? Yes, we have an open ticket for that. It is on the board to be done. Thank you for requesting it. Can you create an RSS feed? I don't know. The answer is yes, we can create an RSS feed, but I don't know for what data that you want. And so let me encourage you to go to the welcome group and suggest what you mean for the RSS feed. So then the next question is there API support? We actually have a full API in Developer Hub right here. I went to the top, I went to features, I clicked on API in Developer Hub. I clicked see the documentation. So we have a full API with documentation here. If you want to use the API, you have to become a paid member of Fintel and then create a key. I can go over here to my account and I can click on API keys, and hopefully I have not just exposed my key to you guys. Okay, I have not. And so yes, you can get an API and access the data programmatically. Do we provide the same amount of information about Nasdaq, NYSE listed companies for over-the-counter pink sheets? Yes, we do. We disclose everything that is required to be disclosed by the SEC. Would like to see equity blocks and dark pool trades featured on Fintel. Love to subscribe to, but even if it comes from premium subscription. Okay, so I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know that we can get dark pool trades. If you want to reach out to me on the message board or through the chat, I will see what I can do about that, but I don't know that we can actually find that data. Let me look at the Q&A here because I know there's some Q&A questions over here and I'm just looking at chat so far. Let's see if I can pull up the Q&A. 31 new messages. I'm not staying ahead of you guys here. For screens, is there a possible way to get specific results on investor buying? We don't have, so I want to get the results of Goldman Sachs Group research purchase with shares of greater than 500K. So I don't know the answer to this question. I don't think we have the ability to screen on investor names yet. I think you asked this question in the message board. We are going to be renovating the screener here this quarter, and I will put this request in for you. We are going to be adding the ability to have ownership data, so like aggregate ownership data in the screener. So you are going to be able to say, find me all the companies that have more than 1,000 owners, or where the number of owners has increased by 15%, or the number of owners is fewer than 50. If you want to find companies that don't have a lot of ownership yet. So we are adding that. The calculations are all there. They just have to be exposed on the screener. Can I walk through an example of a long trade and how to make money with the information on Fintel? Look, this is a good question. I don't think that I don't know the answer to that. Let me just tell you this. It's like there's a lot of ways to trade. There's a lot of trading strategies. I don't particularly provide trading advice or trading strategies or financial advisor advice. I can show you how to use Fintel, but I don't think I can really tell you how to make money off of Fintel right now, or how to make money in trades. It's not really my area of what I'm trying to do. I'm not a paid financial advisor, and I think I would probably get in trouble if I tried to do that. Can a new list be shown in the overview tab? I don't know what you mean by a new list. If you want to tell me what that is, then I would be happy to consider it. Can you see what companies, institutions have bought into, like BlackRock, for example? Can you see their portfolio breakdown? Yes. Let me go over here to the search term. I'm going to search for BlackRock. BlackRock has a lot of funds here. But you can take a look at this, for example, as BlackRock Global Impact Fund Institutional. And here I can see all the funds that they own. Now, BlackRock owns a whole bunch of funds, so you're going to have to be more specific. But if you want to see what holdings a company, a fund owns, then this is how you do it. There's no more simple way than this way. I can do Berkshire Hathaway. I can do a search here. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett portfolio holdings is what we want. I'm going to click on that, and I can see what Warren Buffett owns right here. Here's the 13 Gs that he's filed. And if you go further down, you can see all the 13 Fs that he's filed. If you want to go look at the guy from The Big Short, Scion Asset Management, here's Dr. Michael Burry. Here's all of his positions right now. You can see that he's pretty stable. He hasn't been buying a lot of new stuff, but here's the entire list of positions that Michael Burry from The Big Short owns right now. How do I see all short interest, highest short volume to lowest? It's a good question. I'll tell you what you can do. You can go over to the stock screener and you can say, short volume ratio greater than, let's just say something like 15%. And I'm going to click go on that. And it's going to turn through. And when it's done, I'm going to be able to sort on this by short volume ratio. And I'm going to continue on to the next question here. So here's this is done. Actually, it turns out I cannot sort on this. So if you want to see, we can go even higher than here. But if you want to see the highest short volume ratio, this is your best bet, is just using the screener and plugging in your numbers here and filtering higher and higher levels until you can find the highest ones that you want. It seems to be a deficiency here. We should be able to sort on this, and I'll take a look at fixing this in the future. Regarding the last question, can more than one list be viewed in an overview without selecting all? Yeah, so go back to the dashboard here. If you have multiple stock lists, you can actually filter them over here. I only have a follow list here, for example. I have to look into this. Looks like there's some caching going on because I know I created another stock list. I don't think I have anything in the large caps, but if you had a stock list in here that had more stuff, you should be able to pick a new stock list here and filter this front page, your overview, by that stock list. What is the time delay before filing data shown on your site? We ping the SEC every 60 seconds. Do you provide the same amount of information? Okay, these are the same questions here. Are you able to pull options data? So it's a good question. We don't have options, like if you're talking about like option chains and so forth, we don't have that license yet. What we do have in terms of options data, and this is probably not what you want. If you go look at Tesla, for example, in the 13F filings, companies are required to, a lot of companies are required to disclose their puts and their calls in addition to their holdings. And so if you are interested in that information is right here in the institutional put call ratio data. One of the things that's interesting about ownership data is that if you're just looking at the pure ownership data, you're going to find out that a lot of companies like Vanguard and BlackRock that are passive investors, their ownership data is going to kind of pollute the total numbers. And so I don't actually consider ownership data to be, for example, index funds. Index funds don't really do any analysis whenever they buy stocks. And so their inclusion in this ownership data, it kind of pollutes the overall kind of value of the data. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to look at the historical put call ratios of these companies. And this is basically, you take all the puts that are disclosed by funds and all the calls that are disclosed by funds, and you create a ratio on that, and that's going to tell you kind of the sentiment. You know, passive investors and index funds don't buy puts, they don't buy calls. The only people that buy puts and calls are actively managed hedge funds, really. So if you really want to know what the sentiment of the smart money is, you know, there's no better indicator, in my opinion, than the institutional put call ratio, which is right here. Okay, so let's keep going here. I don't think that was the answer to your question. I think you wanted to know if we have option chains. That is something that we'll probably look at for Q3 or Q4 of this year. With more than one stock list, they're only shown in the aggregate. Yes, the answer is to your question is yes. I think I just gave a demo on how to show you how you can see your different stock lists on your dashboard, but I'll do it one more time. Go here, pick your stock list, and it will show you just the data for your overview there. This is also doable on your news page, and I think on your SEC filings page as well. You can also filter this by your stock list. On the screener, is it possible to screen for all stocks rising above a specific moving average? So, okay, great question. We don't have a lot of technical indicators in here yet, but we're going to be adding that. So the answer to your question is no, but yes, it's on the product roadmap, and it's probably going to be available in the next couple of weeks. I'll say couple of weeks. I'll say Q1 for January. Can you backtest an investing strategy in the screener? No, we don't have backtesting yet. It's something I'm very fond of, but we don't have that right now. Is there a streaming trade screen for individual stocks? I used to trade through Daytech, who was a buyer in Ameritrade. I don't know what this is. If you can reach out to me afterwards or on the welcome page, I'll be happy to answer your question, but I don't understand this question right now. Can we get reported date column in a stock screener? I don't know what this is either. Are options expiration dates available within the platform? We don't have that information yet. We haven't licensed options data. It's something that we're looking at. What's the difference between a 13G and a 13F? Okay, great question. A 13F is required by the SEC for every company that is, every asset manager or every company that has more than $100 million in assets under management. So if you're Carl Icahn or Berkshire Hathaway or anybody that has $100 million under management and you're buying and you're taking positions in another company, then you have to file a 13F. And the reporting deadline is you have to report your positions at the end of every quarter, and you have to report them within 45 days of the end of the quarter. A 13G is a beneficial ownership information. And a 13F means you have to you report on everything, no matter how small it is, even if it's only 1%. Okay, you're a large enough asset manager. The SEC wants to know everything that you have within certain guidelines. Now, a 13G is designed to identify anybody who owns more than 5% of a company. So if you're an individual investor and you don't have $100 million in assets under management, but let's say you have $1 million in assets under management, and you go out and you find a penny stock and you take all your money and you put all your cash into a penny stock, and you happen to own more than 5% of that company's shares, then you would be required to file a 13G with the SEC because you would be considered a beneficial ownership of that company. So that's the difference. If a company, if you own more than 5% of a company, you have to file a 13G. If you have more than $100 million in assets under management, you have to file a 13F. And some companies have to file both. Vanguard and BlackRock are the two largest asset managers in the world. If you go look at just about any company here, I'm just going to pick a company out. I'll use Facebook. Facebook's probably a terrible example. You're going to find Vanguard and BlackRock filing 13Gs for almost every publicly traded company in the United States because they've got so much money that they have to file. Now you might say, so what does this say? So Vanguard owns 7% of Facebook, BlackRock owns 6% of Facebook. They have to file a 13G. It's as simple as that. Okay. Does Fintel always show when funds close out a 13G position? If they, so the requirement is this: if a company owns 1% if somebody owns 1% of a company, they're not required to file a 13G. When they get to a point where they own 5% or more, then they are required to file a 13G. As long as and they're required to file an amended 13G anytime the value or the amount changes after that. So for example, once Vanguard reached 5%, they had to file. If they then take on more positions, they have to file again. The SEC gives Vanguard and BlackRock, because they're so large and they don't really, they're passive investors. They don't actually have to file within 10 days like a lot of other people do. They only have to file annually on February 15th. So on February 15th, when that rolls around, you're going to see Vanguard and BlackRock file amended 13Gs. You can see the last time they did this was back in February 2020. They're going to file a new 13Gs for every company that they have positions on, and it's going to be a really big dump. Okay. Now, if a company reduces their position below 5%, they're still required to file a 13G until they reduce their position to 0. So that means, like, if Vanguard decides that they want to exit Facebook and they reduce their position down to 2%, they're still required to file because they had already reached that 5% threshold until they totally close out. So the answer to your question is we always show funds, we show all of the funds filings. Okay, if there's a filing at the SEC, then we are going to show it. When they close out, we're going to put a marker in here that shows that they close it out, and it should list. Now, if you think that there's an issue where we didn't show one, then it's probably an error, and we'll look into it. But we're always trying to show whenever a fund closes out a 13G position. Now, I know that there's a lot of old stuff in here. I don't know why Dustin Moskovitz doesn't have a new position here, but you know, that's the way it's supposed to work. I can't always explain why it doesn't work that way. Let me see if I can figure out how to pull up these Q&As here. I think I have to just turn my, okay, open questions here. Is the alert screen, bring your shared window to the front? I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to get this window on. I'm gonna have to switch back over to get my Q&A up here. Hang on a second. Okay, is the alert screen searchable, filterable? It is not yet. What about option data? It is not yet. We don't have that data license yet. Do you provide the same amount of, okay, so these are all out of the same questions here. We do provide the same amount of information for Nasdaq and NYSE as we do for OTC. You're looking for a text message for insider buying as well as 13G and 13Ds. Is this going to be possible? The answer is yes. What is the time delay for data to appear in your website? 60 seconds. Is there a way that your site will send notifications on transactions related to a security or fund that I specify? Yeah, so let me tell you something. I'm testing out a new alert that will tell you when a company has taken a new position in a stock that you were following. We don't actually offer that yet, unless it's like a 13D. We will alert on a new 13D filing, but if a, let's say Vanguard or a hedge fund files a 13F and they take a new position in the company you're following, we don't actually alert on that yet, but we're testing that alert out now. And I think it's going to be a high volume alert. So if you're interested in this, tell me on the welcome and I can add you to this alert. I'm personally getting them right now, but it would be actually interesting for a lot of people, I think. Let me switch back to the Q&A. In the case of reverse stock splits, how long does it take to adjust on Fintel? So we show the data that the funds disclose. We've taken this choice that we don't want to modify the data that the funds have disclosed because we don't want to be in the business of second guessing funds. And so when there's a stock split or a reverse stock split, let's say a fund files a 13F, and this has happened many times in the past. June 30th rolls around and a company files that they own 100,000 shares of a stock. And then there's a reverse stock split and it's a 10-to-1 stock split. So now there's only one share for every 10 that they have. So technically speaking, the fund only owns 10,000 shares. But let's say they have not disclosed, they haven't filed the 13F filing yet because it's not due. So when it's time to file their 13F filing, they're still going to disclose 100,000 shares because the disclosure requirements are they need to show how many shares they had at the end of the quarter. If the stock split happened after the quarter, they're not going to adjust that. It's going to be, they're going to file 45 days after, and they're going to show you what they had at the end of the quarter. So this is a big problem, obviously, because there's a delay. When that fund then goes and discloses their new filings, a quarter and 45 days later, then you'll see that. Now, in a lot of cases, if a company owns more than 5% and it's a 13D or 13G, because the shares have changed significantly materially, they may be required to file a 13D or an amended 13G or G within 10 days of that change, but you don't necessarily see that for the 13Fs. I hope I answered your question correctly, or at least clearly enough. Why does short interest info from your site is different than being reported by other sites like Nasdaq? So I guess the question is it short interest or short volume ratio that you're looking at? We don't actually show short interest for Nasdaq and NYSE listed companies. As I mentioned, we don't actually have that data licensed yet. So you're not going to see, this is not going to be any different than the, we don't actually have short interest data for Tesla. So if you're comparing this, with Tesla, with the Nasdaq site, then, there's no comparison. This is short volume. This is a different number than short interest. And so, this might be what the issue here is. Short volume ratio is not the same thing as short interest ratio, and this short volume is not the same as short interest. So maybe that's where the confusion is coming from. We are planning on licensing short interest. We will be licensing short interest directly from the Nasdaq. We will be licensing for Nasdaq listed companies, and we're going to be licensing New York Stock Exchange listed short interest directly from the New York Stock Exchange. So you won't see any discrepancy there once we do that. How can I find the stock composition of DWCPF? DWCPF. I'm going to look at this. I don't see it here. I don't know the answer to the question. So maybe this is a fund that we don't have. I will see if I can figure out what's going on with this company. It might not actually be required to disclose. It might be as simple as that. Let me just see where we are here. It's 9:52. This has been a great chat. Let me just see if I can pull up the chat now and see where we're at. A lot of great questions here, and I really appreciate you guys being so active here. On the screener, is it possible to use data from different quarters, e.g. to calculate the NIMCAV or PCF on the last quarter and the previous? So it's a good question. Not yet. It is certainly a question that people have asked me about. How do you compare current numbers with prior numbers? It's not an easy answer. I think we're going to look into how we can do that. There's been some good suggestions I've seen, and we're going to try to figure that, but you can't do that right now. Somebody says they just did a screen. The price of the screen stock is yesterday's close. Is that what I should expect? Yes, we have end of day pricing. That's what we have right now. It's probably what we're going to have for the foreseeable future. I don't expect that we're going to be doing intraday pricing for the stock screener in the short term. It's not something on our roadmap. We're really trying to get end of day pricing. We're going to try to build out the technical indicators for that. In addition, I want to mention that currently the stock screener really only covers US stocks. And that's because we don't have underlying financial data like the balance sheet and the income statement and stuff like that for foreign stocks. However, we do have end of day pricing data for foreign stocks. I say foreign stocks, I should say international stocks. So we have pricing data now for Canada and the UK and European exchanges, Asian exchanges, and so forth. And because there's a large interest in technical analysis and technical indicators, we're going to be adding technical indicators, and we're going to be adding international stocks to the screener. And so you'll be able to say things like, show me where the EMA crosses over, this is 7 day moving average crosses over some other moving average for Hong Kong listed companies and things like that. And so that's something that we want to do in Q1. And if you have an interest in international stocks, please reach out to me on the welcome message board and let me know what your interest is. So, wow, what a great session here. It's been, let's see, what time is it right now? It's 9:55. This has been nonstop. A lot of really engaged people here. I really appreciate your time. It's very exciting to me to see so many people involved in this and interested in something that I hold very dear. If you have not gone over to the welcome message board, I'm there every day. Please come over and sign up and say hello. And if you have some more questions I didn't answer, you can answer them, ask them there, and I will do my best to answer them. This is going to go on YouTube. We have the Fintel channel there. So I will, once we're finished here, I will take it down. I will upload it, and we're going to do another session on stock screening, I think next week at the same time. And I'm probably going to be opening up another webinar that's going to be more like just kind of office hours, which is probably going to be essentially what this is. I'm going to do this on a regular basis. So glad to have you guys here. Thanks for your attendance, and I'll see you on the site. Take care.